in the West, we tend to be very objective driven. So, objective driven. Okay, this is the thing I have to do. Let me get that done. Okay, I got that done. You know, stuff like to-do lists, things like having a specific focus when you go to school, away to school. You know, I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. Even when we talk about the university is kind of squashing two words together. Unity in diversity. Unity in diversity. So you have this diversity of gifts or diversity of disciplines, and how can you have that sense of unity though you have all of these different things going on? How is that possible? So that was the whole thing with the university. And you have these classical philosophers. When I say that, Socrates and Aristotle, you had these guys who are sitting around the table and were like, hey, well, I know what the four essences are earth, air, fire, and water. So what's the fifth essence? What's the essence that unites the four? The essence that unites the four. And that's where we get the concept of quintessence. Quintessence, five, fifth essence. Quint means five. Fifth essence, which is really that essence that brings those things together. And that was the whole concept of the university. And we talk about higher education and everything, was to bring those things together. Now, in the African conception of things, things aren't so separated. Dance is music. Music is dance. So it's not that we talk specifically about dance, or that they would talk specifically about dance like it's some kind of separate entity, because it's not. Dance is music. Music is dance. And so, although it's a good idea to have a university where you have all these different disciplines and kind of housing the same thing, sometimes it can create problems because we never really talk about how do you do more than one at a time. How do you keep this stuff balanced? What's most important? How can you have that kind of quintessence? How can you have the thing that draws the things together? We don't really ever talk about that. We just have the stuff in the same place. But we don't talk about how to divide your time or your attention so that you can get this information. In the West, that tends to be the problem. We have all this stuff, but we don't know really how to organize the stuff in a way that doesn't drive us crazy. Right? In the East, from what I can tell, and you see this in Eastern philosophy and things, it's almost like it becomes a normal thing or a normal way of existing to be overwhelmed. Being overwhelmed is okay. And when I say being overwhelmed, I'm not talking about ready to shoot yourself or pull your hair out. That's not what I mean. I mean that to have the knowledge that there are many things that you do not know, there are many things that it's going to take a long time before you know anything about. There are many things that are going to be challenging and that are going to push you. There are many things. And instead of necessarily trying to divide them up, try to find a way that you can approach those things and still have a sense of oneness or a sense of peace when you're trying to do that. That's a hard puzzle, man. It's a paradox. It's like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
Well, and then you hear the concept of letting go. Letting go of your attachments to things, letting go of what you think things should be, and rather just letting things happen. when you become overwhelmed, one of the things for me, one of the things that happens to me is, when I start becoming overwhelmed, before a lot, I would just you go into overdrive, you get burnt out, I don't know, people get depressed, people get there's all kinds of weird effects that can happen, that can happen to you. And what I've tried to start doing, and I'm not perfect at this, is when I feel overwhelmed, and I've talked about taking things and putting them onto the back burner. The back burner still receives heat; it's still on fire. But it's just in the back. It's not in the front anymore. So this is a way that you can try to focus on that. Now, I'm not, I think that meditation does a lot of good. I think meditation does a lot of good in this sense. So if I'm practicing a specific thing for a specific class, if I think about what those things are that I need to be practicing, and I try to spend just a few minutes trying to empty my mind, and I have to do it all the time. You have to do it all the time. Whatever the pattern is, you have to maintain the pattern. Because if you just do it once or twice, and then you think that you have some success with it, so then you stop doing it, then it's going to happen again. Yeah. So then you have to come up with some kind of routine that you can relax, clear your mind, think about positive things, think about things that are going to help you focus on what it is that you have to do. And don't be worried about what you can't control. You have to focus on the things that you have control of, which is substantial, but which is limited. Be okay with that, and try to move from that perspective. So I was saying, in the West, we tend to be objective oriented. It seems to me that in the East, things seem to be more about the journey and enjoying the process. And so even if you're struggling, that's part of the journey. That's part of the process. That's part of refining you. That's part of making you better. And so it ends up, there's a sometimes, you might hear the phrase a bright sadness, or a dark joy, but really talking about a bright sadness. Bright sadness. How can you have a bright sadness? Well, it's because you're struggling, and it's a lot of work, and it's struggle. It's hard. But the brightness is that you know that what you're doing is worth it. So it's like you're struggling, but the struggle is not in vain. It's a peace in the pain, if that's possible. And I didn't mean to get too deep. I wasn't trying to get so deep, but really, that's really what it is. And I think if you can get that, you can really understand that, figure out how to enjoy the process and only be concerned with things that you can control. Other things, you have to just let them go. You can't control them. So it doesn't benefit you to worry about something you can't control. You don't have power to, just by worrying about something, to change the situation. So since you don't, quit worrying about it. And I think when you meditate on those kinds of things and you think on that, when you practice, when you play, probably be a little easier to clear your mind, because you won't be so attached to stuff that you can't control.